What's up, folks? What's going on? Welcome to episode number 60 of the Spun Today podcast. I'm your host, Tony Ortiz. Thank you very much for listening. Episode 60, POTUS, Donald J. Trump. POTUS, for those of you that don't know, stands for President of the United States. And yes, you heard me correctly. Donald J. Trump. It's not a hoax, unfortunately. It's not... could be a sign of being in a simulation and the gamers are fucking with us right now. There was a funny meme that I saw amongst like the many that said, in an alternate universe, they're saying that Donald J. Trump is president. And, implying that we're in that alternate universe. Anyway, for those of you that are not into politics, this will not be an episode for you, but for those of you that are interested in my take on the recent elections here in the United States, then stick around. In this episode, I speak about the upset for some, unexpected for most, victory of President-elect Donald John Trump, who handily defeated Hillary Clinton, the first woman to be nominated to run by any major political party, the Democratic Party. Here's my take on where we are, how we got here, and where to go from here. I will be referencing a lot of different sources, I guess you can call them, in this episode, all of which I will link to in the episode notes. There's like over a dozen different links. If you guys want to check any of them out individually, feel free to do so. Go to spuntoday.com/podcasts/060. And on my website, and all the notes will be there, or just in the episode notes like your iTunes description and Stitcher description for the actual episode, and you can find everything there as well. All right, so let's get to it. So how did this happen? Hillary won the popular vote with over 61 million votes versus Donald Trump's 60 million plus votes. However, Trump won the Electoral College vote with 290 of the 270 they needed versus Hillary's 232. Now, a lot of people get confused with that, point, how did she get more votes, but she lost? Like I said, she got more popular votes, which means just people voting, like throughout the country. However, the Electoral College vote, the way it works, I did actually an episode, so I'm not going to get too deep into it. I did an episode called How Elections Work. Check that out in the Spun Today history, and if you want to dive deeper into it. But simply speaking, it's every state has a certain number of Electoral College votes, which directly ties into how many congressmen they have and state senators, which has to do with the population of the actual state. So, for example, Florida has 29 Electoral College votes. Pennsylvania has 20 Electoral College votes. North Carolina has 15. Virginia has 13. Colorado has 9, etc. So every state has a different amount of Electoral College votes. Of those Electoral College votes, the President of the United States needs 270 of those to win. So the popular vote influences the Electoral College vote directly, in the sense that if a state's popular vote votes more for, let's say in Florida, they voted more for Trump. There was 4,605,000 votes for Trump versus Hillary Clinton's 4,485,000 votes for Hillary. Those 29 Electoral College votes go to Trump. Whoever gets to 271st wins the presidency. Now, what happened here is that, which similar to in 2000 with Gore and Bush, where Gore won the popular vote but lost the Electoral College vote to Bush, is that Hillary won in big urban states, like heavily populated states like New York, which always votes Democrat, and California, and states like that. But Trump scooped up all of these little, he picked up big states also. Florida, which was considered a swing state. And by that, I mean a state that sometimes it votes Democrat, sometimes votes Republican, etc. But a state like New York is like always Democrat, for example. So that's why it's not considered a swing state. But a lot of the majority of these swing states that he would have needed to win, he won. He picked up Florida, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Ohio, Wisconsin, Iowa, all of which are considered swing states that could go either way. And that put him over the top. And he wound up getting 290 electoral votes versus Hillary's 232. Now, there's arguments for and against this type of system. For example, in a direct democracy, which means that Hillary would have been president. A direct democracy just means the popular vote, meaning the people vote directly without having to go through the electoral college. There's an argument for that type of system. However, the argument for the electoral college is that so that, like states that aren't as populated get balanced out in terms of the voting, because if not, then California and New York will always dictate like states like that would always dictate the outcome of elections because they're going to be like more populated. Not always, but more likely, I guess. Now, the Electoral College, which is a group of, ex-politicians, ex-presidents, mayors and governors and just pundits of the party, they actually vote, like those, for example, from Florida, the 29 Electoral College votes, those are 29 people. They vote for the president on December 19th, if I'm not mistaken. And, there is a protest and an outcry to get them to flip the vote. For example, because they could technically they could vote for whoever they want. They don't have to vote for Donald Trump. They don't have to vote for Hillary just because the popular vote went that way. However, when they do not vote the way that the populace dictated, that's called a defector elector or something like that. And however, it's very unlikely. It literally hasn't happened except for one time in 1892 or some shit like that, 100 years ago. And it was 3 electoral college votes out of Oregon or something like that. One of them decided to become a defector elector and vote for the populist party candidate or some shit like that. So, you have 290 that voted for Trump, or they are going to potentially, versus 232. So Hillary needs 40 of these people to flip, which, one flipped 100 years ago. So it's very unlikely. Get used to having an orange guy for president. Hey, technically, he is a minority. We didn't get the first woman president, but we got the first pumpkin, whatever the fuck he is. Now, here's something that Alexander Hamilton felt. Alexander Hamilton thought that the electors would make sure that, quote, the office of president will never fall to the lot of any man who is not in an eminent degree endowed with the requisite qualifications, end quote. Which means that the Electoral College will never let someone who's not qualified become president. But until we see otherwise, that's what's happening. At least to what we consider, presidential and qualified up until this point. Which directly ties me into how did we get here? Why did so many people come out of the woodworks and vote for Trump? Why did we, and by we I mean, the majority of voters and pundits and just people that speak about the elections and stuff like that, not just I'm from New York, not just, within my bubble, my blue bubble of New York, but throughout the country, there were no polls, no no predictions that Trump would win. On the contrary, it was supposed to be a landslide victory by Hillary Clinton, and it was all but that. So before I get to what like my feelings, my take on where we go from here and stuff like that, I'm going to go through why I feel that why we're here. And in short, it's a frustration with the system and the status quo. Hillary Clinton represents the system, the current political system as we know it, and the status quo. The corruption that we don't like within politics, she is like the poster child for that. For those of you thinking now, they're all corrupt, what the fuck do you mean? It's like, yes, exactly. They all are. And she comes from that she's cut from that cloth. So the vote is not necessarily a pro-Trump vote. And again, this is my fucking opinion. And not just my own. It's an opinion that I subscribe to. It's not like an original thought or anything like that. So it's not necessarily, there were some that were, pro-Trump votes, but the majority, I feel, the majority was more of a fuck the system type of vote. And, if I'm going down, I'm taking you with me type of shit. Now, if that was wise or not is yet to be seen. We're all going to find out together over the next 4 years, but that's what I feel the spark that. And it very much so highlights both the Trump presidency and the Bernie candidacy. Very much highlights two polarizing views of Americans. Two frustrated, we are sick and tired of the system as it is now. We are sick and tired of the status quo. So we want to elect people that we haven't seen before. That's why Bernie had so much clout behind him, and why Trump won. So from the left and from the right. However, Bernie got fucked. Bernie got blocked. I still think, many polls were showing that Bernie would have handily beaten Trump. I wanted Bernie and I did vote for Hillary because to me she was the lesser of two evils. So, don't out me just yet as a Trump supporter or something like that, because I definitely wasn't. But we got to call an ace and a spade and tell it like it is, at least from how I see it. And the Democrats must be kicking themselves in the ass for blocking Bernie, which they literally did. There were, amongst the WikiLeaks that came out, there were emails from Hillary Clinton to, let me see, the infamous DNC leaks, which is the Democratic National Convention leaks. There were emails stating from Clinton advisor and lobbyists wrote to John Podesta, which was Clinton's chief of staff, not chief of staff. What do they call it? Like campaign manager or something like that. Somebody high up on Clinton's campaign, John Podesta, emails to him stating, we can't believe our own primary bullshit, and we have to grind Bernie to a pulp or some shit like that. So there were like concerted efforts to not let Bernie become the nominee. And this is because, the parties are a good old boys club, the take care of our own type of thing. It's Hillary's turn, so Hillary has to go, regardless of the popularity of somebody else, and she's the one that we want to push forward. So regardless of what the people actually say, that's who's gonna go forth. Which was the case in 2008, but Obama was just like too ill of a candidate to be ignored. I linked to that. That was in a Salon article, by the way, that covered some of the WikiLeaks emails and all that stuff. Like I said, there's going to be a shitload of things that I mentioned, all of which are going to be linked in the episode notes. So check them out. I'm not just going to tell you guys it's linked like fucking 15 times throughout this episode. There was a really good Julian Assange interview by John Pilger called The Secret World of U.S. Elections, where Julian Assange, a few days before the election, speaks about a lot of the WikiLeaks emails that came out. Julian Assange, by the way, is the guy behind WikiLeaks, not to be confused with Edward Snowden, the NSA guy, whistleblower. Julian Assange is currently in an Ecuadorian embassy in London, where he's been living in a two-room for the past 40 years or so. Because if he goes back to Sweden, where he's from, he will most likely be extradited to the United States. And if he steps outside in London, and London will most likely extradite him to the United States as well, where he would stand trial under the I believe Espionage Act. And he would be considered a spy because he allows all of these like emails to leak, all of these documents and stuff like that he feels that is important for the public to know. He vets, him and his staff vets and releases through journalists who do their own vetting as well, and puts things out there, like for example the email, the DNC emails and stuff like that. Me personally, I'm all for that shit. I'm all for all these whistleblowers, and which is a huge criticism of the Obama administration, because they've been very tough on whistleblowers, contrary to what Obama ran on, and which is why Edward Snowden is in Russia somewhere, has asylum in Russia, and Julian Assange is stuck for 4 years away from his family and kids, his wife and kids, in a 2-bedroom room, windowless room, in an Ecuadorian embassy in London. And it's important to have the checks on the system. You know who checks them. There's supposed to be checks and balances within them. However, when there's so much like corruption and bullshit going on, who checks that? And that's supposed to be the role of the people. And if we don't have information, because all of this clandestine type shit that goes on, then we can't do that checking. We can't vote people out. We don't know things. So because we stick our heads in the sand and don't want to see how the sausage is made, quote unquote, we wind up with the types of situations that we're currently in. So as long as they're doing things in a responsible way, which is the function, the proper function of the media or investigative journalism, and vetting information and making sure things are accurate, which WikiLeaks, in their favor, to their credit, has a pristine record. Everything they've ever released, 100% of it is accurate, verified information. There's nothing that comes out that says, oh, that's all fake shit that they're putting out or anything like that. It's not like onion pieces. So it's important, I think, to have that someone willing to be able to put themselves out there like that for the greater good, if you will. So more of which of why we're here, more of the status quo. So check out that video. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff in there that I will be referencing to further make the point of the status quo and why people are frustrated with it. Another example is the whole Saudi Arabia U.S. connection. So while Clinton was the Secretary of State, the biggest arms deal ever to Saudi Arabia from the U.S. was made. We sold over $80 billion worth to Saudi Arabia. And this is controversial because Saudi Arabia is said to be direct funders of terrorist organizations like ISIS, etc. Now, the counter argument to this is that they are our allies, I guess, quote unquote. So it's kind of like a and I don't pretend to know much about like the Middle East, much at all about the Middle East and these types of the politics of it. But to my understanding, it's that, to have this very wealthy, very, very influential force in the Middle East kind of sort of keeps that stability there. And although they like armed groups that eventually became ISIS, they were arming them to combat, other negative interests in the region that were there before. And, it's this like balancing act of, kind of sort of sell them weapons. They keep shit in check over there to a degree. And the negative repercussions of that is that certain factions, break out from that and become groups like ISIS and Al Qaeda and stuff like that. So like that arms deal is something alarming. It's something that happened. It's not like conspiracy theory, like some secret shit. The United States sells, and other countries as well, like Russia and stuff like that, they sell their old weapons to other countries. It's been going on forever, and it's a huge market, like huge, like Donald Trump, big league huge. It's just not something that's like in our face, you know what I mean? So out of sight, out of mind type of thing. So the like corruption angle of it when it comes to like Clinton is the fact that deal happened under her watch, technically, under Obama. She's not like the only person though, too. But under Obama's watch, under Kerry's watch, under the current administration's watch, which she was a part of. And also some of the like the emails, and this one I have a kind of like a counterpoint to. But one of the emails stated. From her to one of her staffers. I believe I'm gonna butcher this a little bit, but I believe it had to do with the Clinton Foundation, where someone from Saudi Arabia donated like $1 million to the foundation or something like that. Most of which, by the way, does go to like good causes. The Clinton Foundation does do supposedly a lot of good. I don't know. I'm not there. But the whole corruption thing to it, the whole like that whole thing that came out about Hillary Clinton being corrupt and the foundation being like fraud and sham and stuff like that is that, for example, they'll donate $1 million to the foundation, but like Hillary Clinton will take $250,000 of that and pocket it, and not pocket it, but it'll be like paid to her separate from the $1 million donation or something like that. And it wouldn't be reported through the foundation, so they consider that like fraudulent or like shady. Plus, after that is that the like $80 billion arms deal happens or like goes through. So it's kind of like a weird coincidental, like, yeah, here's $1 million for your foundation. Oh, by the way, so I mean 80 billion worth of guns, and like that goes through. Again, she's not the only one. It's not like she has $80 billion worth of guns in her garage and, sells it to someone in Saudi Arabia. Anyway, one of the emails states that Saudi Arabia is willing to buy, etc. And she's speaking to someone else in the know, like one of her staffers. And to me, she could have been, like people are saying, she's selling us to Saudi Arabia, and I think the email had to do with the guns thing. I'm not too sure. Like the whole guns thing happened, like the arms thing. But I think conflating like two different stories. But it was something to the effect of something with a prince from Saudi Arabia. Like her argument was, that was regarding a certain, ex-prince or prince of a certain region in Saudi Arabia. As she was referring to the staffer that she was speaking about, but everybody saw it as, or people interpreted, at least Julian Assange and how the mass media has interpreted thereafter, as, she said Saudi Arabia, so she's speaking about like the Saudi government. But that's not necessarily the case, and I kind of agree with that. Like in the context of if I was speaking to a staffer, and I'm not going to say Prince Maliku Akbar from the top left region of the southernmost point of Saudi Arabia, I'm going to be like, Saudi Arabia wants this and that. Because the staffer is going to know who we're currently dealing with in Saudi Arabia. You know what I mean? So I don't have to be that specific. So I can just say Saudi Arabia. She knows what I'm talking about, or he, whoever the staffer is. And I don't have to, in a personal email, it's not like a formal letterhead type of out there for the public type of thing. It's like a fucking text or some shit like that. I'm not going to be, get into all those details. I would just say Saudi Arabia wants this and that. And I think that's an important distinction. And again, that's just my opinion. I'm not there. But again, moving forward, this type of goings on is why people are fed up with the status quo. The whole thing of her not releasing her transcripts to the speeches that she's given to Goldman Sachs and other big banks on Wall Street. Emails came out regarding that as well, stating that she has a private view of the goings-on with the banks, and she has a public view, a very distinct public view and a very distinct private view. And it's like, why are they different? Like, why are you, what are you telling them that you're not telling us, and vice versa? Well, I guess they technically know what she's telling us because it's public. But that she's gonna be hard on banks and stuff like that. And she's widely known. She's been known. Bernie said it. Obama said it when he ran against her in 2008. She's like in Wall Street's pocket type of thing. That's what she was like known for. She was like a Wall Street politician. Which leads me into the whole like lobbyists thing and money in politics, which is like a huge part of all of this. And I'll give you guys an example. Citi, when Obama ran it, this is not just specific to Hillary Clinton. Again, it's the system as a whole. It's the system as we know it. It's the current status quo. Obama, when we ran, and there's a link to this article by the Wall Street Journal in the episode notes. Citigroup recommended a list of cabinet members to President-elect Obama, the majority of which became Obama's cabinet members, which is troubling. Now, there's an argument for like who is he gonna get? Who is he gonna go to? Like, these are, like the titans of business. These are the people that know the inner workings of what's going on and stuff like that. But it's very troubling in the sense that these are also the people that are poised to benefit from their own influence on the system, on government. And Citi literally recommended, like, let's say 10 people, and 8 of them eventually became on Obama's cabinet. One example is Michael Froman, which is currently the U.S. Trade Representative for International Economic Affairs. He was the CEO of Citi Insurance and the head of emerging markets and strategy at Citigroup. So, and there was a bunch of other people like this that Citi was like, yo, by the way, you should put these dudes in. And they did. That's the type of shit it's fucking troubling. That's the type of shit that people don't like. Because it's kind of like, if we have these elected officials in place, but they're really just being told what to do by like these big corporations and, pretty much the influence of money in politics, then what the fuck? You know what I mean? Continuing. Again, with the current status quo and why people are frustrated with the system as it is. Lobbyists literally write legislation for some elected officials. Lobbyists, for those of you that don't know, are people that are. It's a profession. It's people that are paid to introduce certain things to congressmen and senators and the president or the president's like staff. And they're paid for by, like Citigroup and Walmart and, any of these big corporations have lobbyists, or like the NRA. The NRA is considered a lobby, the National Rifle Association, and they lobby the government. They send people to them and to let them know, guns aren't that dangerous because of this and that. And et cetera, et cetera. It's people that want to get their way. That's the function of the lobbyist, is to try to get their way in terms of the best interest for the company that they're representing. And what's troubling about stuff about lobbyists is that they are, fueled by money and politics. They are a symptom of money and politics. If money was out of politics, the lobbyists wouldn't exist to this degree, in my opinion. But the troubling aspect of it for me is that they literally write legislation. It's not like they're taking all the information to the representatives, and I'm sure some of them are doing this, but most of them are not. It's not like they take the information to the elected official. Like, I'm going to go to the congressman as a lobbyist and give them, all the information, give them a presentation, a fucking book report on something, and they're going to mull it over for a couple weeks and look at contradictory facts and peer-reviewed studies and stuff like that, and then make a decision on voting yay or nay. They are, for the most part, actually writing the law as it's submitted, or writing the bill as it's submitted. They write them for the politicians. Like, there's something so gross about that, and not just gross, just so inherently dangerous about that. Like, they're literally word for. Let me give you guys the examples I'm referring to here, and stop trying to explain it, because the actual example explains it best. So there's an NPR article that I'm going to read an excerpt from, that again is linked, which ties into the whole Citibank thing and stuff like that I was just speaking about. It's a little different when the American Cancer Society gives you some technical assistance on a cancer funding bill versus when one of the largest banks in the world, which was just recently bailed out by the public, writes you a bill that will give it access to public deposit insurance to fund its exotic financial activities. And that's what they're doing. They are writing the legislation that gets introduced as a bill. Literally writing it. Here's another example from a thinkprogress.org article. And it's of a lobbyist group called ALEC, ALEC, which, by the way, I saw a documentary about, which was really interesting. I forget where the fuck I saw it. I don't know if it was on Netflix or on Documentary Heaven or Amazon, or where I saw it exactly, or maybe on YouTube. I don't know. But I completely forgot to link to it or save the link like I normally do to share with you guys. But I looked up an article that speaks about this, and it's linked in the episode notes. The article is called Oops, Florida Republican Forgets to Remove ALEC Mission Statement from Boilerplate Anti-Tax Bill. So the ALEC is one of these lobbyist groups, and they literally, they wrote the legislation, like I said, like I just mentioned to you guys that they do. They gave it to this Florida Republican congressman who introduced the bill, and literally forgot, somebody did his homework for him and he handed it in with their name on it, type of thing. He literally forgot to remove their letterhead and stuff like that from the actual bill that he submitted to Congress, which in and of itself is I don't want a fucking idiot like this, that if he's cheating on a test type of thing, and if he's that dumb that he has to do that, or that lazy, I don't want him representing anything, because he can't even do that right. Anyway, there was video of this in the documentary that I just mentioned. He's on the floor introducing a bill, and one of the other congressmen are, they have the counterpoint to it. And they're or were you influenced by ALEC? Because it's a known organization amongst all these politicians. Which, a quick aside, it's a group that it's a private entity. ALEC. They say that they're not lobbyists, but it's a private entity that elected officials and heads of corporations are a part of. So they're all fucking in bed together, literally within ALEC. Anyway, and in the video, the guy, the congressman from Florida, he's saying, no, I was not influenced by ALEC at all, whatever, blah, blah, blah. This is from my staff, and we did research, blah, 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 whatever bullshit. And he's holding the paper in his hand, and he's no, and blah, blah, blah. And then the other congressman is Well, actually, I asked because it still has Alex letterhead on it, and the guy just goes pale, and he looks at it and he's like, "Oh fuck." So yeah, there's there. If you're letting the people that stand to benefit from the law write the law, there's something so ridiculously wrong with that there's no words for that. Like that's a broken system. That's not a system. That's just corruption, straight up. Or allows the possibility of corruption to such a degree that it is corruption. Because I'm sure there's good people within that world, right? Everybody's not, twirling their mustache hairs and thinking about how to fuck people, but you open the door to that type of shit, which is not good. Now, moving forward, and with a couple more points of corruption and the system as it is, and the status quo, and why we elected Donald Trump for president. And to kind of point to that, why can't Congress research and write all of its bills themselves? Because we are under the impression, at least I was for a long time, that congressmen are these noble folk that, and some of them are, I would imagine, haven't found any yet, but that do the bidding of the people. They go, they study civics and the inner ins and outs of things that directly affect the populace that they're representing, and vote on things all day and whatever. Like that's like the quintessential view that we or at least naively had of Congress men and women and senators, etc. Well, yeah, Congress would include senators because the House of Representatives and the senators make up Congress. All right. But but that's not the case. So why is that not the case? Like, what the fuck are they doing? And why is it that lobbyists, and why does that function exist where lobbyists are writing the laws for them and they in essence become the experts that the Congress people, men and women, rely on in order to submit bills? And the reason is that they don't have the capacity to really pour into a lot of the things that they have to vote on and know about. There's upwards of 11,000 since January of 2015 to the present, upwards of 11,000 different pieces of legislation introduced by Congress. So when you factor that in, with the fact that for example, the restrictions on how they operate increase in the sense that the U.S. Code of Federal Regulations grew from 71,000 pages in 1975 to 102,000 pages in 1980 to 174,000 pages by 2012, and I don't know where it's at now. Then throw the number of lobbyists in the mix, or organizations with Washington representation, that in 1981, from 1981 to 2006, grew from 6,681 organizations to 13,776 organizations. And just the vast amounts of information that are out there, that's out there for any particular subset of a topic. It's not like before, like here is the only 3 books that have ever been written that have anything, that are peer reviewed, that have anything to do with climate change. It's like you can find hundreds and hundreds of like websites and blogs and thousands of scientists and hundreds and probably thousands of books on it and stuff like that. That's a very large undertaking for someone to take on, in terms of a congressman to like him or her and their staff to go through. It's literally physically impossible. You know what? I don't want to say impossible because I don't think it is. I'm not privy to that, to be in like that situation or like have any like inner workings of it, but they're it's being done now in a way that includes lobbyists and corruption and stuff like that. So it's being done, just not how I think personally it should be being done. So there has to be. You could always make things more efficient, I feel, and this is not the most efficient, beneficial process to the population as a whole. To say, the only way we could get it done is if we include all this, money, politics, and corruption and shit like that. So increased funding for Congress would be needed to increase their staffs. For example, that's an idea towards that. And a huge point to the whole getting money out of politics thing that Hillary was for, at least she said she was for, electing someone to the Supreme Court that would overturn the Citizens United decision that allows for unlimited amounts of money to be injected into the political system, is the fact that more than half of the time of all Congress people, and this is according to the documentaries that I've seen and an article that I'll link to in the episode notes from termlimits.org, upwards of 6 to 8 hours per day by each of these Congress elected officials that are doing our quote unquote our work in their respective districts and up in Albany. Not in Albany. I'm thinking of fucking New York State. In Washington. Up to 6 to 8 hours per day, every day, is spent not working on legislation, but getting fundraising, raising money for their upcoming elections, which are either every 2 years for Congress people, so they literally have to do it constantly, every day, 365 days a year. Or not 365 because it'd take like 3 months off or some crazy shit like that, which is another thing we should cut out. And, so if they weren't spending half their day, imagine your 9 to 5 job. You go to work, you spend up until 1 o'clock in the afternoon calling people, raising money. And then you go to lunch. And let's say you keep it to an hour because you're a congressman, who the fuck is your boss? You then come back and then you quote unquote work on legislation for 3 to 4 hours of the day and then go home. Like, that's not efficient. That's not effective. Clearly it's not. And that's why at that point they're like, fuck, I gotta, hey, Alec, you guys wrote, you guys did all the homework already? You wrote a bill? Oh yeah. Oh really? Oh, those are the main points? Okay. Yeah. Sounds good to me. I'll introduce this shit tomorrow. That's why that type of shit happens. And money in politics is the root of that. Now, something else that I'm not for, and after this point, I'm going to have to cut this off. I'm recording this on Tuesday, November 15th in the morning, but I gotta go to work, gotta pay the bills. So I'm going to cut it off after this point, and then I'll continue recording later on this evening. Another point in terms of like efficiency and I guess this is more toward efficiency than corruption, but but still has to do with the current status quo of how shit works, is the bundling of unrelated bills. I think that needs to stop. Now there's a lot of times where people are like, she voted for the war, or she voted for against abortions or something like that. A lot of the times it's unrelated bills that are bundled up together because they have upwards of 11,000 different bills that are there that get introduced per year, and there's just not enough time to like vote on everything, and they bundle up unrelated bills. I think like the bundling works if it's related things, and I'm gonna give you guys a direct example of a bill that's related. But when you say, all right, when you go to a bill gets introduced to Congress and everybody's gonna vote on it, and it's like, should we go into Iraq or should we not? Oh, and by the way, this vote, which it's only one vote, also includes, fucking babies get asthma pumps, or I don't know, it's something arbitrary like that. That has nothing to do with going like into Iraq. And you're voting pretty much for the top of the ticket, the bill, the law, the big thing that's there, going into Iraq or not. And then by proxy, you're also voting for all the other shit under it. You're voting yes for that as well. If it's unrelated, it shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be, because that's fucked up. That's like so broken that, again, it's something that I don't have words for. Like, that shouldn't be a thing. Like, why is that a thing? Why, if I separate it, if it's unrelated, separate it, and we vote for it separately. And we have to find a more efficient way than, let's just throw all the shit in that has nothing to do with each other, and just to get it out of the pipeline. Like, no, that's not efficient. That's not productive. It's not doing anything positive. That shouldn't be a thing. However, when bills are related, they should be, and it would be more efficient to bundle them up. And I'll give you guys an example. And this is according to Ari Hershowitz, which apparently was a Congress staffer. And this is a reason. I'm going to read a couple paragraphs that he wrote here from tabulaw.com. And this is a reason for the bundling of related bills that have to do with each other. And he says, quote, "It's hard to get bills passed. That's the way our system was set up. Quote, checks and balances, unquote, is a genteel way of saying planned gridlock, especially in a Congress as polarizing as this one, 113th. So when a bill has enough political momentum to take it through, you can bet that those other bills that have been waiting on the sidelines want to catch the wave. I worked for 2 years on a bill to stop illegally logged timber from entering the United States. The bill involved a very small number of changes to a very old law, which is the Lacey Act. At its minimum, it involved adding the word, quote, plants to the law. It was a little controversial. Companies that import illegal timber didn't like it, but had enough congressional support to pass. If it could ever get scheduled for floor time, which is another issue, by the way, but that didn't happen in nearly a year of waiting. When it was added to the Farm Bill, it went through within weeks. In theory, would I have preferred a healthy debate on illegal logging and all the damage it does so we could have a clean and public victory? Yes. In practice, could we ever get enough congressional give a shit to have that debate? No. So we took what we could get, and it is now illegal to import illegally logged timber or other plant products. So the bundling works for good and evil. That's an example of good. So it had to do with illegal timber and plant products being imported into the United States, and it got bundled up with the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill had momentum and support. It got bundled up with that, and it passed. But it was waiting for 2 years because nobody really gave a shit about illegally logged timber, like the Congress as a whole. Not that they necessarily didn't give a shit, but there's bigger fish to fry, I guess. But that's an example of where bundling does work, and I'm for. But shit that's unrelated, that's like such a fuck you, we're just trying to like sweep this under the rug for now, we'll get to it later, type of antics that shouldn't be in place, should not be the case ever. Instead of bundling shit up together because you don't have enough time to look into things and vote on things, how about take money out of politics and you get yourself an extra 6 to 8 hours a day of actually doing the work. Maybe we'll wind up getting people that actually want to do the work for the people, not just a cushy, lavish, work, 3 or 4 hours a day and then spend the other hours of the day schmoozing and getting money to get reelected, type of shit. Maybe we'll get, people that actually want to be there. All right, so that pretty much sums up the current status quo, the current why people voted for Trump, why people are fed up with the system. It's that type of shit. Now, when I come back later tonight, it's going to be seamless for you guys, obviously. I'm going to pause this for now and then pick up where I left off and get into the certain points of the expansion of the executive power by both President Bush, President Obama, that people were kind of like, it's all well and good while Obama, somebody that has composure is in office, but what if we get a nut job in office? And people are like, oh, that'll never happen. And it's probably happening. Now they have more power than they've had in recent history. And I'll get into that in a little bit. Alrighty, and we're back. It is the next day today, Wednesday, November 16th, as I record this part of it. And I'm just going to try to rein it in a little bit because this podcast has gone long, but I'm still going to get out all the points here that I wanted to. So, moving forward with the expansions of power under the Obama and Bush administrations and the implications now with Donald Trump moving forward. So Bush expanded executive power and Obama as well. They get criticism for it more so than any other president prior to them, meaning that Obama had more powers because of Bush, and similarly Trump will have more powers because of Obama and Bush combined. And what I mean by that is, for example, Bush, by enacting the Patriot Act, which allows for the detaining of people indefinitely without trial, mass surveillance. The whole NSA thing came out of this, mass surveillance under the guise of finding terrorist activity and stuff like that, and the ability for the NSA to be able to tap into your phones, your emails, internet monitoring, etc., all that good stuff. Then Obama also was against that, at least campaign-wise, but his administration is criticized for embracing it. And I have a few articles linked in the episode notes for you guys to check that out. And I'm going to read from a couple excerpts. Now, the thing is with Obama is that he kind of used and expanded his executive power for things that a lot of people deemed as good things. Not everything, because him and his administration were like the hardest president on whistleblowers, like Edward Snowden and Julian Assange. And when they actually ran on encouraging whistleblowers, they did the exact opposite of that, which is one of the biggest criticisms I personally have. It infringes on freedom of speech, and I know there's like a thin line between that and what these guys are charged with, which is espionage, which is I think is a stretch, but good ethical journalism, regardless of what side it's outing, shouldn't be checked in that way, in my opinion. But what was I getting at? Okay, so a lot of people say that he did good things. For example, I'm going to read you an excerpt here from a New York Times piece, which states, with the president's blessing, the EPA also became more aggressive. The agency asserted federal authority to protect thousands of waterways and wetlands, proposed to cap carbon emissions at a new and existing power plants, raised emission standards for trucks and airplanes, and called for new limits on methane, mercury, and ozone. He has been much more ambitious and aggressive on environmental regulation than any other president we've had, said Jeffrey Homestead, a lawyer pursuing legal challenges to some of Obama's signature environmental rules. So he did things of that nature with his executive power, but in doing so, he sets a precedent that expands executive order power or something like that. It gives the president the authority to act unilaterally through executive orders. When he can't, and he was doing stuff like this, it's kind of like a catch-22. He was doing stuff like this because he couldn't get things like this passed through Republican Congress, which didn't want to pass shit of his proposals, and vice versa. He was vetoing all their shit. They wouldn't vote on and pass any of his stuff, so he used a lot of executive order because of that. But the negative of this is that with the more that you do, the more precedent you set, and the more precedent you set, the more ability for the next incoming president is to use the same type of tactics and precedents moving forward. And these expansions of executive power are a dangerous precedent to set, because in large part people were saying it's Obama, he's a posed president, but a lot of people were saying what are we going to do if we have some psycho that becomes president in the future or something like that, and people are like, that'll never happen, blah blah blah. But we are where we are. Imagine what a president that didn't believe in global warming, for example, Trump, who sides with that whole global warming is a hoax thing, even though 99% of scientists unanimously agree that humans are contributing to global warming. Imagine what a president with that type of precedent to influence the EPA, which he wants to abolish, by the way. Donald Trump, he wants to abolish the EPA, get rid of them completely. I would understand if it's like revamping them to make sure that they work properly, but he just wants to get rid of them. The Environmental Protection Agency. Imagine what a president like that would do with that type of power. That's the dangers of what was done there, and we're seeing the possible implications of that moving forward. And I forget who it is who he's like vetting for the EPA administrator position, which the EPA is, in short, the agency that issues and oversees environmental regulations, and he wants to like dismantle them and get rid of them, supposedly, according to some campaign rhetoric. We'll see what that translates into in reality. But at the very least, one of the people that he's vetting, I believe is for that position, is also a climate denier. So he's so far not surrounding himself with the best people, especially when you factor in like the Giuliani's, who he's vetting for Attorney General, and is a proponent of stop and frisk, thinks it's not unconstitutional. Chris Christie, Mr. Bridgegate himself, who was responsible for the whole Bridgegate scandal, which was, there was a mayor in Fort Lee, New Jersey, who was against his Chris Christie's like re-election campaign or something like that, and Chris Christie and his administration colluded to create traffic jams on a bridge that went into Fort Lee, which wound up causing a shitload of traffic jams, and emergency services weren't able to go through. And I think it's around like a snowy season or something like that. Someone wound up dying because they couldn't get emergency service, etc. And it was all because of political bullshit. Like, they literally created traffic because the mayor from the city that the bridge was going into didn't want to support Chris Christie for fucking president. Piece of shit. And that, they wound up getting, or her staffers at least, he got out of it, obviously, wound up getting like indicted and and got a bunch of counts against them. But it's people like that so far, Trump, you're fucking up. I know you kind of have a very clear look on your face, like when he was meeting with Obama and with the House Speaker and stuff like that. Like, what the fuck? I actually won. What did I get myself into? And part of the hope, at least, of people that were like, oh fuck, we got this demagogue crazy fuck for president, was that maybe he'd surround himself with people, good enough people to, see us through safely the next 4 years. But so far, at least with the people that he's vetting, it doesn't seem promising. Anyway, here's another excerpt from, I believe it's that same New York Times piece that speaks to the how the president could or did expand executive power, and there's implications of that moving forward. Mr. Obama announced an executive order raising the minimum wage to $10.10 an hour for several 100,000 cooks, janitors, and other federal contract workers. What the president was ultimately doing was holding up the United States government as a model employer, said Joseph Gevarghese, director of Good Jobs Nation, a union-backed advocacy group that pressed the administration to embrace its regulatory power. And it created a ripple effect. Within months of the president acting, you had private CEOs, IKEA, Gap, Disney, several airlines, saying they too were going to boost minimum pay. So there's stuff like this. Again, this is another good thing, if you will. Different economists might disagree with that, or like free market advocates, like let people pay what they want to pay in the market to sort that shit out. That might disagree with that, but with this being a good thing. But this is examples of good things, in my opinion, that the president used his executive power for, and set precedents for the future moving forward. But again, imagine someone who believes that there shouldn't be a minimum wage and like reverses shit like that. See, this is like the direct things that Trump can undo with his executive power, order, and precedent. Russell Brand has a YouTube show called Trues. It's like news, but TREWS, where he does these like small videos, like 5 to 10 minutes long, about a specific topic. His recent one, episode 372, was pretty good. Had a pretty salient point in saying that we've reached like the climax of like this political democracy. Like, we can't, I guess, like a silver lining he was trying to say is that we can't any longer pretend that politics is all right, that it all works itself out, et cetera, that it's not corrupt. Because look at it, because Donald fucking Trump, the host of The Celebrity Apprentice, is the president of the United States. This is like a clear indication that real change is required. It's needed. Hillary, which was like the model candidate to some, and was a shoo-in to win the presidency, because she was more of the same, wound up giving us Donald Trump. So a good looking into is in order for our political system as we know it. Which then leads me to the recent Common Sense with Dan Carlin podcast, which again is also linked to in the episode notes, that you guys should check out. Here's a couple interesting points as well, which is using this like unprecedented time to try and change or upgrade the political system. Start contemplating questions like, do we really need an electoral college? If we didn't have the electoral college, Hillary would be president. Al Gore would have been president in 2000, etc. Now, that, I mean, to us, it sounds like, yeah, we don't need an electoral college. But at the same time, it's like, it does help. There's a purpose for it. Like, it helps balance out the states that are less populated in terms of having a voice. And we're kind of on the side of, because it's happened twice in terms of the popular vote candidate not getting elected, and it happened to Democrats. So I'm sure all Democrats are going to be like for it. But regardless, it's something to consider and look into, because the point of the Electoral College was to, give an equal vote to people that would otherwise go unheard. But it was also implemented at a time where technology is not where it was at. You can make an argument for the ability for people to, social media and connect with each other, to that kind of sort of balances out that equal voice type of function that the Electoral College is playing. He pointed out another idea of ranked voting. For example, like, I want Bernie, but if he doesn't get the nomination, I want my vote to go to Jill Stein or something like that, which I didn't get that too much. It's an interesting idea to mull over, but then you kind of sort of get into the wait, so then your vote counts twice type of thing. Not sure how. Maybe I misinterpreted what he said, but it's an interesting idea, but definitely need some more like looking into. But the point is, use this. We're in unprecedented times. Let's do some of the heavy lifting that it would take to make real change. Another point that he made is that people that voted for Trump didn't want a Marco Rubio. They didn't want a Ted Cruz. They voted them out in the primaries. So if Trump really brings in, people like Giuliani, that he's thinking of bringing in as his attorney general, Newt Gingrich, which was like the House Speaker in the 1970s, early 1980s or something like that, Republican Speaker. He's going to be echoing like all their Republican bullshit, and the real supporters of Trump that voted for him, not just as a fuck you to the system, which I think most of them did, but the ones that, weeding out the psycho racist bigots that voted for him, KKK fucking closet members. But the people that voted for him, like, as an anti-establishment populist candidate, he's going to be alienating all those people. And those people are going to need the Republicans, the Democrats to speak out for them, to check his echoing of that Republican bullshit that they didn't necessarily vote for, if he continues to surround himself with these types of people. So that's another interesting point that Dan Carlin points out. I really hope that for example, Mike Pence, the vice president elect, is not Dick Cheney. He's not like the guy that's really pulling the strings behind the Bush administration. Like, I hope he doesn't wind up being like that type of person, because he's a dangerous fuck. He's like a super religious right-wing nut, to the point that, like, he believes that when women have abortions, they should have funerals. A buddy of mine told me. And what else? He believed in electroshock therapy for gays, because being gay is a choice. Like, nutty shit like that. And that's the vice president-elect of the United States. And he's in the know. He like, he's like entrenched in the party. He was like the Indiana governor, if I'm not mistaken, from Indiana. And, he's been with the party for years. And he's a scary guy to have behind Trump. What else? This is how scary it is. This is how some people think. Let me give you guys an example of a proposition that I'll put the Ballotopedia link in the episode notes for this measure that was on the ballot in Oklahoma. By the way, Ballotopedia is dope for if you ever wanna go into, what does what am I voting for type of thing, like what does this measure mean? If it's not just like a specific candidate, Ballotopedia could be very helpful. There was a measure in Oklahoma that was, let me read it directly here. It was State Question 790. It was Oklahoma public money for religious purposes, meaning public taxpayer money. The whole separation of church and state thing that apparently doesn't want to be applied anymore in Oklahoma. A yes vote was a vote in favor of allowing public money to be spent for religious purposes. A no vote was a vote against allowing public money to be spent for religious purposes. The measure would remove Article 2, Section 5 of the Oklahoma Constitution, which prohibits the government from using public money or property for the direct or indirect benefit of any religion or religious institution. So, directly or indirectly. That's like a scary little like wording there, because it's like, the Catholic constituency there is I could just picture them down the line stating, hey, government, open up your public money wallet and block the that mosque from being built because it's indirectly infringing on our religious freedom on this side. It's like there's a separation of church and state for a fucking reason, and this is how close this thing came to passing. 57% of the people were sane and voted no. They voted against it, but 42.88% of the people voted for that, for public money to be used for religious purposes, directly or indirectly. That's insane. That's like, to me, that's like setting the stage for some crusades, Christianity versus Islam type shit down the line. You know what I mean? Like opening up that type of thinking, that type of mentality. That's nuts that even becomes a fucking an idea, a measure. Man. And nutty motherfuckers like Mike Pence, I'm sure, are all for that type of shit. Which, to his credit, I will give this to Trump, that he, like in this election, or this campaign at least, there was no like mention of like church related stuff. You know what I mean? Like there's usually like a lot of, I speak to God every morning and blah blah blah, like that type of shit. He kind of got the whole church thing out of it, which was good, out of like the narrative, because he doesn't give a shit, clearly, right? Guy doesn't believe in anything. I think I feel like I know his archetype, which is going to be a good or bad thing. I feel like his, like the type of human being he is just like win at all costs, win this conversation, be the winner of this exchange with this one person in front of me, be the winner of like everything, like just like by all means necessary, just win, topple over the person in front of you, like that type of mentality. So, which will be a positive, hopefully, if applied in the sense that when the type of people that he's putting around him try to implement the crazy wild religious bullshit and other Republican ideas that I guess I personally don't agree with, that maybe he could like steamroll them, maybe, wishful thinking in a way, but hopefully it's not too far to the side of, I'm gonna fucking nuke North Korea because I want to, and like that type of shit. You know what I mean? So hopefully like he's able to shake things up enough to the point where like the status quo gets and bureaucratic bullshit gets like fragmented and broken, but not to the point that he like destroys the world. And unfortunately, that is a thin line between the two. There's a distinction there. Another positive is that he is more like, his foreign policy is like non-existent. Like his whole like thing against ISIS, it was, we'll bomb the shit out of all of them, and with little regard to like casualties and stuff like that. And he's more focused on domestic issues versus foreign policy, building the infrastructure, et cetera, which might not be a bad thing. Might not be a bad thing to get the fuck out of Dodge in certain areas, as long as it doesn't It's not, as long as like us pulling out of Iraq and Iraq being a shit show right now is not a microcosm of what's going to happen when and if we ever like decide to like really pull out of, foreign policy wise, or at least take a step back for 4 years and focus on domestic issues. And that might not be a bad thing. However, people like Mitch McConnell already in the Republican leadership stated that they don't agree. That they stated, what was it? Domestic issues like infrastructure are not at the top of our priority list. So we'll see how much of Trump gets his way with that type of shit, how much he believes that type of shit, or if he's just gonna hand the rein, gonna be a puppet and hand the reins and all the strings to the Republican leadership that's currently in place in the House and Senate. What else? He changed the party as we know it, maybe. That's still yet to be seen. I think he changed in the sense of campaign wise. He wasn't a religious nut. He's for gay marriage and stuff like that, as he mentioned. But we have to see. He's surrounding himself with the usual type status quo fucking Republicans. So the progress in that area of changing the party as we know it could completely be undone just with the choices of cabinet members that he puts in place. A big and probably the biggest issue that his presidency is going to have, like the ripple effect of it, just socially, is the dangers of the people that actually bought into his dogma, his xenophobic bullshit. And the fact that it seems to have empowered people that do have racist and sexist and xenophobic leanings, kind of gave people like that like a chip on their shoulder, similar to honestly how minorities had when Obama got elected. How we kind of had a little extra pep in our step. Now some fucking neo-Nazi KKK motherfuckers have that pep, and that's a scary thing. That's a sentiment that he and other people in leadership positions and just us as a fucking community, man, we have to rein in. We have to rein that type of bullshit in, because that shit is not cool and not sustainable. As a country, as a people, if it's just not cool. It's not a good thing for any of us on either side. And I was watching the last Bill Maher episode of the season, which was the first episode after the election, and Thomas Friedman made an excellent point about this within this vein, which is that we're not going to see the big implications of that until like 10 years from now. Because right now there's students around the world in India, in China, throughout Europe that are seeing that type of demagoguery and gonna say, you know what, I'm not gonna go study in America like I had planned, like Sergey Brin, and create the next Google. We're not gonna. There's gonna be a big brain drain because of that. The people are not gonna want to come here. Because of that, we're going to lose those people out, those brilliant minds, because of dogmatic bullshit like this, which again, we're not going to see the implications of for years down the line. So it's another why that's so horrible and dangerous, what happened there, and why we have to make that much more of an effort to rein that type of bullshit in. And part of reining that type of bullshit in, and a reason why definitely a component to why we're at where we're at, is the inability to communicate with each other about certain things, and this whole like PC police culture that we let get out of hand, in my opinion, to the point where everything just gets blocked before it gets discussed. Everything gets ignored before it gets discussed. And It's disgusting. By doing that, and this like current like college culture bullshit that's going on, we allowed these type of thoughts and behaviors and to just like percolate under the surface, like right under our noses, to the point that we got blindsided and wound up with an orange demagogue as our president. I'm gonna read to you guys, and I read this in a previous free writing episode of the podcast months ago or weeks ago, I don't know when. But it's on my website, spuntoday.com/free writing/don't bury your head. Because I think it holds true to this point. I'm going to reread this right now. The entire generation that is responsible for hijacking college campus culture does more harm than good for society as a whole. You know the one. The ones that dub any unflattering opinion as a microaggression. The kind that focus on arguing the minutia of what surnames should be included on some arbitrary form while simultaneously allowing for a possible Trump election. Well, not possible anymore. That shit happened. Don't get me wrong. We should all be sensitive to each other's issues, but oversensitivity breeds contempt as well as inadequacy. We need to be able to have thoughtful conversations about a slew of tough topics in order to work through the issues. Allowing for this inconsiderate, hostile takeover of free speech, where we walk on eggshells to the point where we can't effectively communicate with one another, will lead to much being left undone, an inefficient lack of progress. There's an argument to be made for the potential abuse, for lack of a better word, of free speech and the possibility of opening the door to possible bigotry, which is probably why we wound up so extremely left of this PC issue in the first place. But without allowing these open discussions, you're stifling ideas, which is a disastrous thing to do, even for bad, hateful ideas. Anyone harboring such negativity will, whether we, quote, allow them or not, express them. Not allowing for this free speech expression and taking this ostrich's head in the sand approach opens us up to two distinct possibilities. One, they find a more hostile, pent-up frustration way of expressing their ideas, aka electing Trump. Two, we allow for these unchecked, detrimental ideas to percolate beneath the surface and spread right under our noses, aka electing Trump. We're losing the battle of ideas because we're not having any. Meaning, we're not having any battles. We can't expect anyone to see the error of their ways and faults with their thinking without us helping them to do so. Like it or not, we're all in this melting pot together. Benjamin Franklin said it best: those who sacrifice liberty for security deserve neither. Let's not continue to sacrifice the liberty of free speech and ideas for the presumed security of burying our heads in the sand. And I wrote down Tuesday, March 15, 2016 at 7:47 a.m. And I think that holds true. You know, the reason why all polls and pundits didn't see this coming and had Hillary winning like unanimously is because there was a shitload of, like I said in point number 2, we allow these unchecked detrimental ideas to percolate beneath the surface and spread right under our noses. There was a shitload of people that were going to vote for Trump. They were just not saying it right beneath our noses, clearly. And it's because these people didn't have a voice. They didn't feel like they were being heard, and their big fuck you manifested itself in the form of an orange demagogue. Congratulations, folks. PC police, you're fucking way out of that shit. That said, for all the protesters out there, if you want to protest, you know, part of me feels like, come on, he won fair and square within the broken, weird, fucked up system that we have. But he won according to the rules of the game as it is. So just let it go. But at the same time, another part of me is like, no, you know what? You believe otherwise. You have the freedom of speech to do so, feel free. Protest, as long as it's peacefully. You're not hurting anybody. You're not just making matters worse instead of making them better. Then by all means do it. But do it. I don't want to see these protests like dwindle down in a couple weeks and then everybody ignores like all the issues that they're protesting for now for the next 4 years. If you're gonna protest peacefully, do it. But do it. Like through the next 2 years, consistently do it. And let that protest culminate with the voting out of some of the Republicans in the midterm elections and rebalance Congress. Vote for some progressive Democrats. We need fighters in there now more than ever. You know what we need, matter of fact? Take a listen to this, folks. He's a fucking rock star politician, in my opinion, that we had in the Democratic Party. Dick pic scandal aside, you can't take away his political prowess, Mr. Anthony Weiner here. Just like you can't take away from Michael Jordan the fact that he was the second greatest basketball player ever, because Kobe was the first. Just because he was a degenerate gambler, right? Compartmentalize shit, folks. We need people like this. We need fighters.
Yield 1 minute to the distinguished gentleman from New York, Mr. Weiner.
Gentleman's recognized.
Great courage to wait until all members have already spoken and then stand up and wrap your arms around procedure. We see it in the United States Senate every single day where members say, we want amendments, we want debate, we want amendment, but we're still a no. And then we stand up and say, oh, if only we had a different process, we'd vote yes. You vote yes if you believe yes. You vote in favor of something if you believe it's the right thing. If you believe it's the wrong thing, you vote no. We are following a procedure. I will not yield to the gentleman, and the gentleman will observe regular order. The gentleman will observe regular order. Gentleman thinks that if he gets up and yells on it, if he's going to intimidate people into believing he's right, he is wrong. The gentleman is wrong. The gentleman is providing cover for his colleagues rather than doing the right thing. It's Republicans wrapping their arms around Republicans rather than doing the right thing on behalf of the heroes. It is a shame. A shame. If you believe this is a bad idea to provide health care, then vote no. But don't give me the cowardly view that, oh, if it was a different procedure, the gentleman will observe regular order and sit down. I will not. The gentleman will sit. The gentleman is correct in sitting. I will not.
This is quite obviously not in order.
Gentleman will suspend.
I will not stand here
Gentleman is recognized.
and listen to my colleagues say, oh, if only I had a different procedure that allows us to stall, and then vote no. Instead of standing up and defending your colleagues and voting no on this humane bill, you should urge them to vote yes, something the gentleman has not done.
Gentleman.
That's what I'm fucking talking about. That wasn't like a speech in front of cameras. That was like in the chambers of Congress when they were like arguing a bill. We need fighters like that. Anthony Weiner and Elliot Spitzer, 2020. That's all I'm saying. Putting it out there. Maybe put Elliot Spitzer at the top of the ticket. His prostitution scandal has subsided long enough, I think. All right. That said, that's pretty much all I got, folks. That's, in a nutshell, my take on where we're at, why we got here. And like I said, a bunch of the stuff that I spoke about is linked in the episode notes, including that video, which is on YouTube, of Anthony Weiner in Congress. And regardless of what, like I said before, Donald Trump is the 45th president of the United States. And it is what it is. Hopefully his ego and his persona is able to shake things up enough that it kind of helps to get rid of the bullshit and some of the bureaucracy and corruption, but to the point that hopefully not to the point where he sets off World War III or something like that. Somewhere in between would be hopefully we'll be bracing for that type of landing or impact within the next 4 years. That said, the episode is pretty much over. If you want to stick around and listen to a few ways that you can help support the podcast, feel free to do so. Listen to some background music while I plug all the ways that you can help support the podcast. But I will be recording that when I come back from work because I got to go pay the bills. All right, folks, speak to you. Oh, real quick, actually, shout out to the only two people that I know predicted a Trump presidency long ago. Not like recently after he got the nomination, when he announced primaries type shit. G Monetti of the I Am Rappaport Stereo podcast, aka G Moody, last name rhymes with duty, and also Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, who is a trained hypnotist, who became a trained hypnotist because he is a writer and obviously, a comic strip creator, and he felt that being able to hypnotize people is a good skill to have. And he implements it in his writing and stuff like that, according to him. He stated that Trump was using grade A neuro-linguistic programming hypnosis type shit. And he recognized that early on, and when he did, he said it was some next level shit. He wasn't necessarily a supporter, but he did recognize it for what it was, and called it. He called it a long time ago. So shout out to those two folks. All right, folks, I'm back. Here I is. My niece says that. When you ask her where she is, she's like, here I is. It's adorable. All right. Since this episode is longer than expected, I'm gonna try to make this housekeeping portion of it as quick and painless as possible. So like I said, the episode is officially, I guess, over content-wise, but stick around to listen to a few ways that you can help support the podcast if you choose to. I have a weekly newsletter that comes out every Monday at noon called the Midday Monday Boost Letter. You can sign up for it for free at my website at spuntoday.com/subscribe, and you will get the very next one. It contains 5 things every week, which is a photo of the week, a podcast of the week, a word of the week, a quote of the week, and a video of the week. If you're interested in any of that kind of stuff, check it out again at spuntoday.com/subscribe. I have a questionnaire on my website. It's a 5-question questionnaire aimed at creatives, writers, artists of any kind. Feel free to check them out. Check it out. It's a open-ended 5 questions that you can answer however you want. And if you do, you can choose to remain anonymous if you want to. And either way, I will read your responses to those questions here on the podcast and share your insight and tips and tricks to your craft with the rest of the listeners of the Spun Today podcast. And the idea there is to help spark inspiration in other people based on how you might do something, and maybe help demystify parts of your process. A great tip that I got from that, from having the questionnaire, is from an Amazon bestselling author that said that he had his day job. I'm not sure if he still did at the point of filling out the questionnaire, but he was a part-time writer in terms of it not really paying bills. But what he chose to do was wake up 2 or 3 hours earlier every day, wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and get his writing in the morning. And he turned that into a habit that eventually turned into an Amazon bestselling book, doing it day in and day out. And it was a pretty good tip. And like you guys know, I wake up now, not that early, but fairly early, try to do writing on a daily basis as well. And even some podcasting sometimes in the morning to get it out of the way. So check that out at spuntoday.com/questionnaire. What else? I have photos on my website. I like taking pictures of things, so you can check those out. and infuse your neocortexes with awesome vision. No, let me stop. It's pictures of shit that I think looks cool, basically, that I took, that I deemed quote unquote photography, and it's located at spuntoday.com/photography for free. You can check them out, download them, and if you want to print any, you can use my affiliate Crated, CRATED.com/spuntoday, and order prints of any of the pictures that you like, either in like poster form or frame or canvas, etc. And those are obviously paid, but if you just want like the digital copies to, set as desktop backgrounds or anything like that, feel free to download them for free from my site. You can also find those pictures, amongst others, on Facebook, on the Facebook fan page, facebook.com/spuntoday, and on Instagram at spuntoday on Instagram. The holidays are coming around: Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving. By the way, happy Thanksgiving. This is the last episode before Thanksgiving, before Turkey Day. I'm very much so looking forward to the day after turkey sandwiches. What? Get some like really good bread, not just like sliced Wonder Bread or regular Italian bread, even though those definitely work, but like a nice like ciabatta bread or like potato bread, lightly toasted, some mayonnaise. You take some turkey, lettuce, a slice of American cheese. Fucking heaven. Can't wait. Anyway, the holidays are coming around the corner, including Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, which I recommend for you guys to do your Christmas shopping early. It's not that much earlier. You order something online, you get it, within a week, a couple days to a week. And, at that point in time, you have 2 weeks to, wrap it up and stuff like that. Get all the shopping you can done and out of the way early. And do so by using my affiliate links on my website at spuntoday.com/affiliate links. And if you do that, it won't cost you anything extra, but you will be helping the podcast out financially, because companies like Amazon and iTunes will help support the podcast financially by giving me small percentage of your purchase. Forgive me, folks. It's late. I'm drained from the day. Fucking half asleep already. It's like pennies on the dollar, basically, from any and all of your purchases if you use my affiliate link. And it's just the banner that's on my website. Just click on it. It takes you to Amazon. You do your shopping like you normally do. It doesn't raise the price of anything that you are purchasing. It's just a couple pennies on the dollar from any of the money that Amazon makes on the buying that you're going to be doing anyway. So why not support the podcast financially in a way that does not cost you a red cent? The iTunes banners work the same way, for iBooks or music. I gotta download that Tribe Called Quest album. I keep hearing it's good. My brother told me it's good. Michael Rappaport and G-Mo Nutty are obviously on that. And that reminds me of, I still want to see that documentary that Michael Rappaport did, the times in life of a Tribe Called Quest, something like that, and which won some sort of like documentary chip, as they call it. Anyway, check it out. spuntoday.com/affiliate links. Do your shopping through there. Help support. Another way to help support the podcast is check out my book, Make Way for You. After all, this podcast is try to make it anyway, mainly about writing, and sometimes we deviate a bit, like this episode from today, but everything is anchored in writing, in my opinion. Whether it's literal books that we speak about, or shows, or movies, or anything like that, we're all influenced by those types of things, all of which are created through and via writing. That said, I have a book. It's called Make Way for You, Tips for Getting Out of Your Own Way, and it's available on any of your favorite ebook outlets like iBooks or Kindle or Smashwords and Kobo and etc., etc., etc. Wherever you get your ebooks, you'll find it. It's on Amazon as well. You can get a paperback if you want a nice little dope stocking stuffer. It's not a long read. It's a motivational, inspirational. At least I think so, and some of the people that have read and reviewed it think so as well. So check it out. It might be something that you're into. If you want to know more about it, go to spuntoday.com/books, and there you'll see a video of me explaining how the book came to be, and also a couple of audio excerpts of the book. And you can listen to see if it's the type of thing that you would be into, if it's up your alley. And if you want a free copy of the book, I can send you a PDF copy via email. And all you have to do is drop your email address in at the bottom of that page, which again is spuntoday.com/books, and I'll shoot you one over. Consider it an early Christmas gift. Another way to support the podcast financially, if you want to, on a per episode or per month basis, is becoming a patron at patreon.com/spuntoday, patreon.com/spuntoday. What Patreon is a site that allows you to support the podcast financially on a monthly or per episode basis. In the case of this podcast, you guys know I release it every other Thursday, so it's like 2 to 3 podcast tops per week, and you can choose through that service to donate $1 per episode or more if you want to, and it's and make it like on a reoccurring basis, and you can cancel it anytime. There's no fees or anything like that. And it would be dope. I have to revamp that page. Stay tuned for that. I'll let you guys know more about that in the future. But there's there are different ways to set it up and have like tiered, not just straight support for the podcast, but I mean it is support for the podcast, but set it up in a way that people that do donate get something out of it. You know what I mean? Like something that's not just this podcast or all the like free writing and free short stories and photography that's on the website, but something extra, something different. And I definitely have to put that together. So stay tuned for that. I'll give you guys more information about that down the line once that actually happens. That said, what else am I forgetting? Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at Spun Today. Like the Facebook fan page. I told you guys that already. Check out the YouTube page. All these episodes are available on YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube page. Links of which you can find on my website, spuntoday.com. And rate and review the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, Google Play. Rate and review it. I would really appreciate that. iHeartRadio, wherever it is that you listen. It helps exposure. It helps expand the listenership of the podcast. And who knows, maybe one day it'll be even 7 or 8 of us. Check it out. Anyway, folks, again, happy Thanksgiving. To you and yours. Enjoy it, be thankful, and be present. And that said, substitute the mysticism with hard work and start taking steps in the general direction of your dreams. Thanks for listening.